Hi, I'm Caden here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have not an NFL Week 16 recap episode, but we are actually jumping straight into our NFL Week 17 prediction episode. Now, as many of you know, and as today is, now that when you're seeing this episode, it is Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody. This episode will be going up on the morning of December 25th because there are Christmas games today. Two different games going on today. The Chiefs at the Steelers in the noon slot and the Ravens at the Texans in the afternoon slot. So because of some schedule conflicts with Cal and I's schedule and just around the holidays in general, and those games being on a different day and us not being able to put this up on Thursday morning, we are just kind of flipping up the schedule a little bit. There will be no recap episode this week, just this prediction episode going up on Wednesday morning before those Christmas games. And then we will also talk about the rest of the slate as well, just as we usually do. But just kind of wanted to explain the mix up here in that there will only be one episode this week and most likely only one episode next week. So I'll explain that again at the start of that episode if it does happen, but just kind of give a fair warning that that's going to be the case. But now that we are past the explanation of the weirdness of this episode and more the weirdness of the schedule, just a quick update on Cal and I's head-to-head pick'em game. We both had very good weeks last week, but Callan actually had the best week point-wise to date, headed by a huge Washington Commanders win in which it was not only the game of the week, but he also picked them as his upset. So he got 4 points off of that one alone and 16 points across the board. But I also put up a respectable 14 total points, which puts us at totals of me with 176 and Callan with 155. So I still do hold a 21-point lead, all but locked in at this point, unless these next 2 weeks are just absolute collapses beyond fathomable proportions for me. I should be able to lock in the regular season, but even if I play poorly these next 2 weeks, or pick poorly, I should say, it just leaves the door open more in the playoffs for Callan. So very much far from over still, and we will see if he can continue to close that gap on me, starting with not Thursday night football, but Wednesday noon football. We have the first Christmas game on this slate with the Kansas City Chiefs heading to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. And we start by disagreeing. I have the Chiefs in this one, and Callan has the Steelers.
And this is the Christmas Day Black Magic game between Taylor Swift and Patrick Mahomes and their Black Magic and Mike Tomlin's Black Magic.
Somehow, that's racist.
Well, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Not sure.
But yeah, sure. I'm not 100% in today's world. But as far as that goes, it's going to be a very interesting game because who knows what's going to happen. It's on Christmas. It's on a Wednesday. We haven't had a Wednesday game, I think, since COVID. So this will be very interesting to witness. And then we have two of them, and I believe they've always involved the Steelers. I'm pretty sure that the Steelers have always played on random days of the week, but it's going to be interesting to watch. I do like the Steelers in this one because Russell Wilson has really reemerged as the Seattle Russell Wilson, even though last week he played more like Denver Bronco Russell Wilson.
He did not look great in the second half.
But for the majority of the season, he's played very well. And I think because of that, he has a very good game against this Chiefs defense. He has the last Denver Bronco win against them when he was the quarterback for the Denver Broncos last year. Yeah. You know, when he was on the Broncos, he beat the Chiefs. So I think that he does it again by leading the Steelers this time over the Chiefs. And also because of not only Patrick Mahomes' injury, which didn't seem to affect him at all last week.
Does it ever?
No, it doesn't ever seem to. That's part of the black magic, is that he doesn't seem to get hurt. He's just got this, like, shield around him, or this almost like...
He likes to pretend he's really hurt.
He does pretend. It does seem really bad in the moment, like, oh, there we go.
Finally happened. Nope, just kidding.
Just kidding. He gets out of it. But this Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to be very dominant against the Chiefs, I believe, this week, led by T.J. Watt. And that is only if Joey Porter Jr. plays, who left last week's game against the Ravens. Against the Ravens, last week's game against the Ravens, he left with an injury. So if he plays, I expect them to be able to shut down this Chiefs passing attack and them targeting the running attack led by Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know. But if you're able to shut down both of them and force Patrick Mahomes to have to win the game, I think this year Patrick Mahomes is more turnover prone, and I think that he has a couple of interceptions instead of a couple of touchdowns, and the Steelers win this one by a touchdown.
Interesting. Yeah, the Steelers, after losing to the Ravens last week, do still hold the AFC North, if I'm not mistaken.
They do.
But it is just by thin margins at this point. Just a weird couple of tiebreakers, weird couple of numbers there. So they know that they still do control their own destiny, but it's a lot closer now. So they better hold on to that wheel tight. But nonetheless, I do think that the Chiefs pick up a win here. I don't even really have a reason. It just seems like the Chiefs win anymore. No matter what the weird thing is, I will say last week against the Texans, they did have one of their better just all-around games. They played really well. They were able to shut the Texans down. They didn't need any weird fluke, fumbled snaps, blocked field goals, missed field goals. They just actually won a good, close football game. So maybe they're turning away from that kind of luck and being like, we're not going to get lucky forever. We better actually, start playing like we should as the top team in the NFL right now, record-wise. So maybe they continue that streak. Maybe they need some of the weird black magic, some of the weird fluke plays. But I do think that the Chiefs, regardless, pick up a win. They just got a lot of firepower on offense. Pacheco came back, and it kind of seemed like Kareem Hunt was going to take a backseat. But instead, they're giving them much more of a two-headed monster, 1-2 tight punch roll for each Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. And I think that has been kind of a force multiplier and not really hurt either of them, but only improved both of them, which is really good to see for those guys there. And that defense is just able to recreate turnovers and get stops when they need it. So to be honest, I actually don't even see this one being overly close. I see a good two or three possession game here for the Chiefs, but Chiefs love to keep it in a one-possession game. I think that's where they thrive. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that's what we did end up seeing.
The Chiefs have become the Patriots of the past 10, 15 years, more recently now. And the Steelers have upset the Patriots before. They stopped Brady on multiple occasions. So maybe
the two guys that could ever seem to do it were Roethlisberger and Manning. So
yeah.
Don't know what it is about that 05
And Tomlin.
class, but
Tomlin was the coach.
Tomlin in general. God, he is such a good coach. I don't think he's ever had a losing record.
He has not.
Such an insane
I
thing
thought
to
it was
say.
going to be this season, and I was
For a guy that's
wrong.
been coaching for what, like 18, 20 years, something like that? Some crazy number like that at this point. It's up there in the high teens, at least.
He
That's
got
so
hired
impressive to
after
see.
the Steelers and Bill Cowher won the Super Bowl in Detroit against Seattle when Jerome Bettis won it. So that was the 2005 Super Bowl. So since the 2006 season, Mike Tomlin has been in control of the Steelers and had a winning record at least every
18 years.
season.
Wow.
Yeah.
I kind of pulled that number out of thin air.
Oh,
That was pretty much a guess.
Yep.
So that's kind of crazy that that's accurate. But moving on to our other Wednesday game and other Christmas game, we have the afternoon game of the Baltimore Ravens heading to Houston to take on the Texans. And we do come back and agree on this one. We both have the Ravens here. I just think that the Ravens are on such a hot streak right now. And that defense is good, don't get me wrong. But that offense is the mainstay of that team. The way Lamar can play and the way that Derrick Henry complements Lamar's play in general is so impressive. Lamar has that very fluid, juke, elusive type running ability and I will give him credit, has looked pretty good passing recently. He looked like it's going to be another shaky season passing-wise for Lamar, but he has improved. He's been a little smarter with the ball throughout the past couple of weeks, and that has led to a lot of good wins, or a lot of wins and a lot of really good wins in general for the Ravens. And then, of course, Derrick Henry is your bruiser. Once Lamar goes out there and gets your lead, he becomes that workhorse. He's going to run the clock down. And not only is he going to run the clock down, he's going to continue to run the scoreboard up because he's not just to get 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards first down. He's a get 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 30-yard touchdown out of nowhere. He can still do that It's definitely less than it used to be. When he was in Tennessee, he was just unstoppable. They're finding ways to stop him now. He's had some quiet games this year. He's getting older, a little more worn out. But nonetheless, he still shows that fire every once in a while. And I think that he just absolutely unloads on this Texans defense. And more than anything, the Texans just don't really have much to play for right now, especially after losing to the Chiefs last week. Their chances of really moving up into that even 3 seed are slim to none, but they've already locked in their division because of how the Colts have played this year. So they're kind of stuck at that 4 seed. So there's not really much of a reason for them to go and play with all the heart and risk an injury to one of their main players going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. That's mostly why I like the Ravens in this one, is that the Ravens still have much more to play for because they can get anywhere up to the 3 seed and possibly even the 2 seed, depending on how things fall. But it's not as likely. They're more likely spot as the 3 seed. And I think they want that AFC North crown. Whereas the Texans have already clinched the South. They really need to just stay healthy because now they've lost Tank Dell to go along with Stephon Diggs. And now they're down multiple wide receivers, starting talented wide receivers. And they actually just recently were able to sign Deontay Johnson off of the waiver wire when Baltimore waived him last week, where it really just did not work in Baltimore. So maybe it'll work better in Houston, where he'll definitely get more playing time because he's one of the only healthy wide receivers. And because of that, and his inexperience, he might not even play yet. Inexperience with the playbook, he might not even play yet. So who knows when he'll see the field, if at all. So I just think that Houston needs to just pack it up and save it for the playoffs. And because of that, I think Baltimore walks away with this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the Deontay Johnson signing till you mentioned the Tank Dell injury. But yeah, Deontay Johnson was picked up off waivers by the Texans. And not only did it not go well for him in Baltimore, it seemed to have like a lot of animosity. It seemed to almost go like very badly for him in Baltimore. So I almost wonder if even if he doesn't know the playbook very well, they throw him in there. It's just like a revenge, let out your aggression type thing because they are so weak at that receiver position right now. But who knows? I mean, you could go out there and just tell him to play as he runs out, take him out, tell him what to do on the next play, put him back in. Because I mean, right now, who are your options? Nico Collins is back, of course, but he's always not unhealthy per se, but always a little shaky.
It's time for John Mechie to step up.
John Mechie can step up big time. Xavier Hutchins has played a pretty good role when he had to. So they definitely aren't like terrible, just barren at the receiver position, but they are hurting to say the least. So we'll see how many snaps Deontay Johnson ends up getting. Probably more than he ever did in Baltimore. So moving on to what is now a little more usual, a little more comfortable. We have the Thursday night football game with the Seattle Seahawks heading to Chicago to face their third NFC North opponent in a row in the Chicago Bears. And we split again here. I have the Seahawks and Kellen has the Bears as his upset.
Yeah, I surprisingly like the Bears in this one because I think they're finally going to win a game. I just got that feeling. They played not awful against Detroit. It's just Detroit was obviously the better team and more powerful team. And I think that the Bears are getting sick of losing. Caleb Williams is actually doing pretty well even though he continues to have a losing record. He is on a interception-less streak or turnover-less streak even, I believe, of 300-plus pass attempts. I'm not sure the exact number, but he set the rookie record, which is kind of surprising because it's like, well, why do the Bears keep losing so many games? They just find ways to lose. And I think that they find a way to win this one. The running game has started to turn it around. The Seahawks are beat up, and I think they're trending in the wrong direction. That was a stunning loss last week in Seattle for the Seahawks against the Vikings, where really Geno had a chance to bring them back and win it, and he blew it almost immediately late in the fourth quarter.
About the second play is when he threw the pick.
So it was a bad throw. So that's really too bad. I think it's time for the Seahawks to meet their maker, and I think they get eliminated this week and a surprise upset of the Bears over the Seahawks.
Yeah, that is impressive that Caleb Williams has gone over 300 passes without an interception. But I think really the formula behind that is he's gone 300 passes without doing much at all, really. I mean, it's funny because it is surprising to hear that stat because he doesn't seem to play that well. He just plays things really safe, and I guess it's so opposite of what you're used to because usually he's chucking it downfield and trying to get fancy and not realizing that he's not facing Pac-12 defenses anymore and he's getting picked off. So I guess now maybe he's maturing a little bit and just being very safe with the ball and not really doing much. So he's still got to find that happy medium. He's got to be able to take some risk and make some bigger plays, but just not be dumb with it. So I'm sure he will find that. Still very young, still learning about being in the NFL. So I don't necessarily think Caleb Williams is going downhill because of an interception-less streak. I'm not trying to say anything dumb like that. But nonetheless, I do think that the Seahawks still end up winning this one. I think that they're finally getting some people back, and both of the last 2 weeks have been pretty embarrassing losses for them. I mean, a lot more injuries in the Packers game, so it's not quite just they got dominated, but scoreboard-wise and box score-wise, they did get dominated, and they were very beat up, and they even lost people during the game. And then now they brought some people back last week. They got guys like Abraham Lucas back at right tackle. They got Kenneth Walker back at running back. They were playing really well in that first half, even all the way through the third quarter. And then it just all got real shaky in the fourth quarter. The Vikings were able to come back and take the lead. And then Geno threw that back-breaking interception to end the game. So they've been pretty well embarrassed, to say the least, the past 2 weeks by these NFC North opponents. And I think they know damn well that if they had to face the Lions, they couldn't do it. So why not beat up on the weakest team in the NFC North, which isn't even the crazy weak team in the Bears because the NFC North's been really good, but definitely the weakest team. Take out all your aggression, get it all back on them. They know their backs are pretty well against the wall at this point for a playoff position with how well the Rams have been playing recently. So if you're going to have a big game, have it right here. And if not, and you lose, you probably deserve to be bounced out of the playoffs because I'm sure the Rams will be able to pick up a win. So, well, we'll see if the Rams will be able to pick up a win.
I mean the Seahawks.
Huh?
You mean the Seahawks?
No, I'm saying the Seahawks deserve to be bounced from the playoffs if they lose to the Bears and the Rams are able to.
Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah. And the Bears haven't won since that Hail Mary game against Washington.
Ooh.
I mean, that's when their losing streak started.
Yeah, that's some bad juju. Yeah.
So it's just, it stuck with them. It killed them from that point on.
Which sucks because they were trending up until
They
that
really were.
You talk about the walls come crumbling down. Good Lord. So now moving down quite a bit down the list, all the way down to our game of the week. We have probably one of the more anticipated matchups, of course, of this podcast and really of the NFL in general. We have a huge game right here with the Green Bay Packers heading into Minneapolis and into US Bank Stadium to take on the Minnesota Vikings. And we, of course, disagree here. Callan has the Packers. I have the Vikings in this one. And man, am I starting to get nervous about this game. Packers have been looking really good recently, and the Vikings have not been looking bad by any means, but definitely been showing some cracks in the armor. But we right now are technically in the driver's seat for the 1 seed in the NFL. With the Commanders picking up a huge win last week against the Eagles in Washington. The Eagles have not been eliminated from the 1 seed, but have a very low chance. So now all the Vikings have to do is win out. But much easier said than done, considering our next two opponents are the Packers in Minneapolis and then heading to Detroit to take on the Lions for, if the Vikings are able to win this game or if the Lions lose next week, will be the battle for not only the NFC North, but the 1 seed in the NFC in general, the battle for the NFC. So if all of those dominoes fall correctly, and that is what ends up happening, that'll be pretty cool. But jumping back a little bit, moving back a little closer to the present, if the Vikings want to prove themselves and if they want to be the 1 seed, they got to win these games against the top teams. There's no other way to put it. So I think that's a huge motivation swing for them. I think that the Packers have looked really good recently, but also have some cracks in their armor of their own. And when the Vikings are able to cover up those cracks and block them correctly, they've looked damn near unstoppable. That defense has been so solid and has been, more than anything, creating turnovers so consistently. Only team in the league right now that has at least one turnover in every game this season, which is insane to be saying that through the 16th week of the season. But that offense has so much firepower on it. Sam Darnold has been looking better and better every week after having a few rough games in a row against some lesser opponents about 4 or 5 weeks back. It was making me nervous a little bit, but he's definitely been stepping up again. So the Vikings can win this game. The question is, will they win this game? I think they do. I, of course, very much hope they do, but we will see.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one to watch. And as of the recording of this, we are yet for the Packers-Saints game to start. So I don't know how this Monday has turned out quite yet while I'm talking about this. But as far as I know, the Packers are more than likely to have won.
If you guys lost this,
so
game,
hopefully I don't look back on this and regret saying this. We more than likely have won this last Monday and are going into still hoping to get possibly up to the 5 seed, where Packers have been eliminated from NFC North contention. However, they have thrived as a 5 seed and a wild card in the past. So we'll see if that really it continues on. But I do like the Packers in this one because they want to get revenge after what happened in Week 4 in Lambeau, where the Vikings jumped out to, I believe, a 28-0 lead in the first half.
Yeah, it was at least 21-0. I think it was like 28-3.
But still, it was a big lead, and the game was over before halftime. It was one of those bad games for the Packers, and hopefully Jordan Love has continued his turnoverless streak. And it'll be interesting to see if he's able to do that against the Vikings. If he does continue to throw touchdowns more than interceptions, I like the Packers to win this one. And I also like the running game of Josh Jacobs, who continues to show that he was probably the better addition. We'll see it again, Jones versus Jacobs, a little bit of a revenge running back matchup there for Aaron Jones.
That's a fun one. I forgot about
So we'll see how he performs. I bet he ends up getting a touchdown, Aaron Jones, just because he didn't get one in Lambeau in Week 4. So we'll see if he does. If Aaron Jones has a dominant game, then I see the Vikings winning. If the Josh Jacobs has a dominant game, I see the Packers winning. And I like the way that the Packers running game has really come into form this season. And I believe that they are going to be the better team and end up maybe forcing more turnovers than the Vikings. As long as we can get Sam Darnold to see his ghost, we can get some turnovers.
No more ghosts of the past. Ghosts of the past. No more ghosts for Darnold. But yeah, I love Justin Jefferson. Didn't have a bad game, but had a pretty quiet game relatively to how he usually plays against the Packers Week 4 in Lambeau. So look for a huge game from him and kind of a re-thrive game, I guess I'll say, for lack of a better term, because the Jefferson versus Jaire Alexander matchup is
that's if Jaire plays.
So fun to watch.
Jaire has been out since Week 10.
I know.
He's out.
I literally almost hope he does, because the Jaire versus Jefferson matchup is always.
They might be saving him for that matchup.
Yeah,
and I know they just recently had ruled him out for the New Orleans game, even though he practiced as a full participant all week.
Oh, they're definitely saving him. They know this game's a cakewalk. Yeah, they're saving him. That's good. That's good.
So
now moving on to our 2 primetime games. I don't know how Packers Vikings isn't a primetime game, and these 2 are, but I digress. Starting with Sunday Night Football, we have the Atlanta Falcons heading to Washington to take on the Commanders, and we split again here. Callan has the Falcons. I have the Commanders in this one. This is actually a pretty big game playoff implication-wise, because I believe if the Commanders win, it locks them in a playoff spot, and if the Falcons win, I think it locks them in a... No, I was going to say it locked in the NFC South, but it does not lock it in. But it just continues putting them in the driver's seat for the NFC South. So if you want to just look at like the playoff picture.
However, I think if Tampa Bay loses earlier in the day, then it will.
Correct, yes. If Tampa Bay loses and then Atlanta wins, and it will, because Atlanta holds the double win tiebreaker over the Bucs. But yeah, so if you want to talk about motivation level in this game and kind of the playoff picture motivation level, there's no more even motivation level than this one right here. It is going to be a hell of a matchup, to say the least. The Atlanta defense has been near impeccable the last 2 weeks. It has just absolutely been insane. 2 weeks ago, they had 2 blocks. Last week, they had 2 touchdowns, defensive touchdowns. I mean, good things come in twos, I guess. What are they going to have two of this week? 20 sacks? I mean, like, where's the two going to come in this week?
Two
Just
safeties.
ridiculous.
I'm calling
Two
it.
safeties. I
Two
like it. I
safeties.
like it. There you go. If we see two safeties, I don't know how you come back from something like that. I think we might see an Atlanta win. But the Commanders have just been on way too good of a roll. Jaden Daniels has been playing like a man possessed recently. He has been willing them through the playoffs, and depending on how that Jalen Hurts injury all kind of falls out, possibly even willing them to an NFC East division title at this point, which is pretty crazy to say. But I think that he pretty much single-handedly is able to reverse what the Falcons defense has done these past couple of weeks and pick up a huge win for the Commanders.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup, but I like the Falcons in this one because I'm predicting the return of primetime Kirk Cousins. I believe that Penix either gets hurt or gets benched because of a poor performance, and they put in primetime Kirk, and he comes in and he reclaims his job, and he gets his mojo back, and he beats the Commanders, his former team, and he leads the Falcons into the playoffs where they will be the NFC South champions. Now, that's why I picked the Falcons, because really, I think the Commanders end up winning this game.
I mean,
because they're the better team.
Could anything light a fire under your ass more than getting benched for a rookie?
Exactly.
No, I mean, it does kind of add up. It does add up.
So if that doesn't happen, I see Michael Penix actually having a bad performance. The Commanders' defense has been much better, and especially since the addition of Marshawn Lattimore. So because of that, I think the Commanders actually do win this game. But I had a crazy theory, and I just wanted to go with the Falcons. Partially also because I had a feeling you'd go with the Commanders.
You got to make up some points.
I knew I had to make up some points in some places. So I felt like that was one of those games where I could get a point.
You got to do what you got to do. I like it. I mean, Penix went against, granted, it was his first start, but he went against one of the worst defenses in the NFL last week and didn't look bad, but he sure didn't look overly good by any means. So who knows what we will see come a better defense. So finally, to wrap it up here, we have a quick one with the Monday Night Football game. The San Francisco 49ers the Detroit Lions heading to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. And we end by disagreeing one more time. Callan has the Lions, but I, in a shocker, have the upset of the San Francisco 49ers, or picking them as my upset, I should say. Big reason here is there is nothing more dangerous than a team that was recently eliminated from the playoffs. We've seen it with a couple different teams last week who played really well after getting eliminated. I.e., biggest example, the Dallas Cowboys, who got eliminated earlier in the day and then went out and actually beat the Buccaneers to put the Falcons in the great playoff position that they're in right now. But I think we see a very similar thing by the San Francisco 49ers. These are teams heading in two opposite directions injury-wise right now. The Detroit Lions injuries are just stacking up. It seems like every week they have somebody else on IR. It seems they have somebody else leaving the game, a new starter that had to miss a few plays. And the 49ers are slowly getting more and more healthy. Debo's been looking much better after coming back. Brock Purdy has been able to stay healthy. George Kittle has played the last few games, so they're moving in the good direction, getting players back left and right. And more than anything in this one, Dan Campbell is a really good coach, really great motivator. But Kyle Shanahan is just a football mind, to say the least. He is so smart. He knows how to kind of stay vigil and not get tricked by a lot of the kind of like trick play type things that the Lions like to do. So will it actually happen? Unlikely. Am I more picking it because it would very much benefit the Vikings? Probably. But I do think that the 49ers really do have a chance, especially with it being in San Francisco. So I locked them in as my upset.
I do think that it will be a lot closer game than people think, because the Lions aren't the greatest on the road, getting out of Detroit and going to San Francisco, where obviously they've still won games on the road, but you want to get one of those tough teams in your own home stadium and possibly get the upset. But I think the Lions and Jared Goff are just too much for the 49ers to handle. Yes, Kittle has made a reemergence, so has Debo Samuel, but they are down to their fourth-string running back, and that's just, I think, too much to come back from. Purdy just doesn't look like himself without McCaffrey, even with Debo Samuel back. He's had multiple interceptions in multiple games, and has really regressed, I feel like, this season. And because of that, I think that the Detroit Lions are able to take advantage of some Purdy turnovers and get the early win or get an early lead on the Niners and take it all the way to the end.
Yeah, it should be a fun matchup, but I did forget about the absolute hole at running back they have right now. So that definitely puts a kink in things. But nonetheless, I really do think that they can pick up a win. So that was our NFL Week 17 predictions for the 2024 NFL season. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure you stay tuned in until next week when we have possibly our recap, but most likely just our NFL Week 18 predictions. But until then, don't forget
to eat the W.